All right, breaking right now, truth and transparency are under assault in our country. Democrats, the liberal media, they're now peddling their lies and conspiracy theories about President Trump with impunity. Now, it has now reached the point where they want to hurt the president so badly that they're now turning on we the people, the American people, and they refuse to pursue what is truth with all the evidence that they can muster. Now, in their panic, they are trying to utterly destroy the people that are exposing the single greatest threat to our constitutional government in our lifetime. Now, here's why. It has been a year of hell for this country. The media has been lying the whole time. They have been pushing propaganda, conspiracy theories about Trump-Russia collusion, even though evidence does not exist. It's a fabrication. It's constructed in their liberal media echo chamber and then falsely repeated over and over again. They may even believe their own lies. Now, the media has carried out this lie, even though top-ranking Democrats and national security officials have all said there's no collusion. In case they forgot, let us do their job and remind them.
The allegation, of course, is that the Russians in the hacking and dumping of documents in the election had essentially relationships with Trump campaign people. But I'm not prepared to say that there's proof you could take to a jury.
Do you agree with this conclusion that the president has reached, that there was no evidence of collusion?
You know, we haven't seen any of that whatsoever, George. We've been looking and showing everything that they possibly have. That has not led to that.
The last time we spoke, Senator, I asked you if you had actually seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and you said to me, and I'm quoting you now, you said, not at this time. Has anything changed since we spoke last?
Well, no, it hasn't.
I know we need to go soon, but just to be clear, there has been no actual evidence yet.
No, it has not been.
At the time I left, I did not see any smoking gun certitude evidence of collusion.
No evidence, no evidence, and they've been focused on perpetuating something they know is a lie. Now, we've been slowly uncovering a massive American scandal that makes Watergate, the Pentagon Papers, look like minor infractions. Now, Fox News is reporting tonight that President Trump has, in fact, reviewed the 4-page classified memo that exposes massive and severe FISA abuses against members of his campaign and then his incoming cabinet. And sources are telling us the memo will, in fact, be released tomorrow. Now, as you can imagine, after a year of lies and painting a false narrative, Democrats and the media, they are now hyperventilating and breathlessly doing everything they can possibly do to discredit and stop the memo from being released. What are they so afraid of? Let's start with the MSNBC conspiracy host in training, Congressman Adam Schiff. He went running to all his liberal allies in the media, like Paul Revere, claiming that the memo sent to the White House had been, quote, secretly altered and the, quote, material changes were made. Now, in Schiff's twisted mind, this means that the memo wouldn't be able to be released to the public because House rules were violated. And the media goes into full hyperventilation mode, and they were ecstatic. And they were all wrong. We'll explain that in just a second. But first, just take a look at what's happening.
Devin Nunes apparently feeling the heat of those criticisms and, according to Adam Schiff, going to the point of making material changes in the memo.
The thing has been a parade of depredations, on which is this the kind of the cherry on top of that Sunday.
Now you actually have Devin Nunes, who made a fool of himself going down to the White House with no information. He was a courier for Donald Trump. Now he's coming forward, and as you said, they have cooked facts in a memo.
Devin Nunes altered the memo. That's
what Adam Schiff says.
Not only that, it's what Devin Nunes' people say. He either altered it a little or they altered it a lot, which is what Adam Schiff's people say, for editorial reasons and to water it down before sending it to the White House. Either way, okay, they altered it. Isn't there protocol?
See the echo chamber? You got the liberal congressmen and the liberal media, and they echo each other. Wow, big surprise, and they're wrong. Schiff is lying. Our own Catherine Herridge reporting tonight that edits made to the memo were for A, grammar, and B, clarity, and additional edits, the ones that were done, were requested by the FBI to protect sources and methods, and at the request of Democrats, meaning people like Adam Schiff on the House Intelligence Committee. Now, this part is very key, and I hope Adam Schiff is listening, because he apparently was rushing to an MSNBC interview when the memo was being updated. all of the edits were made before the memo was sent to the White House for review and not after, like Schiff is claiming. Now, in typical Democratic distraction fashion, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're all doing their best to disparage the memo and attacking House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, and they're demanding that Nunes be removed from his position. And their liberal colleagues are also attacking the memo. Notice they all sound alike. One big lying echo chamber. It's amazing. Propaganda.
The release of this memo is really reminiscent of the darkest days of the McCarthy era with character assassination. It endangers methods and sources of the intelligence community.
All you need to understand is that the Republicans declared war today on our national security.
Well, the main concern I have is that most of the allegations in the memo are simply not true.
If he were to release that memo, he would not only be endangering our country, but he would also be violating the rules of the Congress of the United States.
We don't cherry pick classified information and publish it to give the country a misleading impression to protect the president's hide.
All right, the liberal media is following their commands from their Democratic allies because they're one big group together, and all they have in the media is an extension of what the Democrats want. They're also trying to slam the memo. Why are they so afraid of the memo? Watch this.
He and his Republican allies are preparing a frontal assault on this country's law enforcement institutions. The Trump attack hinges on a memo that Trump's Republican minions on the House Intelligence Committee voted to release on Monday.
John Kelly says he wants everything out, even if the FBI says it's a dumb and dangerous idea. Republicans may get their memo released today, but it will not be the last shoe to drop.
They go and say basically this memo is a pack of lies, and yet we are still right now on track to have it released.
This is a tipping point for our democracy. Are we going to be a democracy after today, or is this going to be demagoguery and despotism?
This is something that could haunt this White House in the months to come.
This is something that will haunt this country if we don't fix what has happened, which I'll be explaining. And even disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, well, he's trying to get in on the action. And tonight, Comey tweeted, "All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field so long as good people stand up. Not a lot of schools or streets are named after Joe McCarthy." By the way, the last thing we need are lectures from Jim Comey. And by the way, Jim, just a reminder, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And Jim Comey needs to be put under oath. He needs to be questioned. And Jim, I want to know why you exonerated Hillary Clinton months before you did the investigation, before it ever took place. And Jim, what do you know about Trump-hating FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? And Jim Comey, what do you know about Andrew McCabe waiting 3 weeks to alert Congress about the emails that had been found on Anthony Weiner's laptop? And by the way, what did you know and when did you know about Hillary Clinton's paid-for dossier? Did you know it was phony, Jim? And did you know it was bought and paid for by an opposition party candidate? Did you know it was presented to a FISA court? Did you pay Christopher Steele? Did you want to pay Christopher Steele, the former British spy that put it together with Russian sources that he likely paid? So, Jim, let's cut the sanctimony. What is going on today happened on your watch. And with all due respect, I don't see any streets in the future being named after James Comey. But if I was you, Jim, I'd be saving these comments for your lawyers. Now back to the memo that we hear will be released tomorrow. Sources are telling us tonight that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The memo is only 10 to 15% of information that will be coming out the days, weeks, and months ahead. Tonight, John Solomon of The Hill is reporting Republicans are looking to make the case that, in fact, the Russia investigation that we have been highlighting and special counsel Robert Mueller's probe were based on, quote, flawed or politically tainted evidence connected to partisans loyal to Hillary Clinton. Now, that would mean the entire thing was based on Clinton bought and paid for lies. And if the media had any ethical standards left, and if they really cared about truth, if they cared about the American people, if they believed in transparency, they would have been all over this story demanding on behalf of the American people that the memo be released. Now, let's put this in a little historical context here. I want to show you a couple of examples. Let's go back. Remember Watergate. Third-rate break-in, trying to get op research from the headquarters of the other party in a presidential election, and then you lie and cover it up. A president was removed from office and had to resign over that. Here's how the media covered Watergate. Then they were a little different, not as partisan as today.
As you probably know by now, 7 persons were indicted today for trying to cover up the Watergate scandals. Overshadowing what happens to those 7 men is the more important question: what does today's development mean for Richard Nixon? For the President of the United States, is the worst now over or only beginning?
The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history.
History shows the American people will put up with a great deal, even when the demands on them are outrageous, as they often are. But they will not put up with anyone who claims to be or tries to be above the law, immune to the rules applying to everybody else. It seems to be known instinctively that if anyone acquires that privilege, it'll be the end of this country.
Is Hillary above the law? Do we have a dual justice system? Do we have equal justice under the law? Compare that coverage to what we showed you earlier about how the media is now trying to malign, ridicule a memo detailing a major FISA abuse against an opposition party during a campaign. This scandal, in the end, will make Watergate look like a parking ticket. And members of Congress that have seen the memo say it shocks the conscience. Yet the media doesn't want you to see it and seemingly doesn't care as they do the bidding for the Democratic Party like they have done for a year, pushing a false Trump-Russia narrative that has no evidence. Now, the media is now actively working and in concert with the Democratic Party. They're working to prevent you, the American people, from seeing what's in the memo. Let the memo speak for itself and you decide. And all of this proves is that the news media, they don't seem to care about civil liberties. We do have constitutional protections, the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure, and the media have just become shills and hacks for the Democratic Party. They're only focused on undermining and destroying President Trump, whatever they could possibly find or do or make up. Here's another historical comparison. Remember the Pentagon Papers? That exposed how the American government, especially the Lyndon Johnson administration, lied to the public about the country's involvement in Vietnam for decades. Now, the New York Times and the Washington Post at the time, they fought all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court for the right to publish those classified documents. And guess what? They won. And guess what? The truth was exposed. But now the media is doing the exact opposite. They want the memo kept secret, which is pathetic. And they're doing a great disservice to you, the American people. Instead of pushing for truth, they're now trying to attack anybody that is trying to expose the biggest case of abuse of power we have ever seen in our lifetime. And people that are trying to be transparent and let you see the truth are under attack by the press and the left that has now aligned themselves. They're one in unison now. There's no separation between left-wing liberal politicians and your media. No line of separation. The media is a bunch of willing accomplices and basically propagandists desperately trying to change the narrative. They've been wrong for an entire year. Here's what they won't tell you. This is what this all comes down to. The scandal starts with Hillary Clinton. They don't care. She rigged. Donna Brazile, head of the DNC, rigged a primary against Bernie Sanders. Imagine if Donald Trump did that in the Republican primary. Then corrupt officials, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Andrew McCabe, and probably Loretta Lynch, they put the fix in, protecting Hillary Clinton with an exoneration before an investigation, even though we know she mishandled and destroyed classified information and broke the law. From there, Clinton took that idea of rigging primaries and then tried to apply it to the general election. Hillary Clinton's campaign and the money she controlled through the DNC, they spent over $12 million for what turned out to be unverified, totally false, a dossier filled with Russian lies to influence and lie to you, the American people. Then, this is where it gets interesting. Then that Clinton bought and paid for dossier was then taken by senior Obama administration FBI officials, not rank and file, we love them, and used in part, and this is what we will learn tomorrow, to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on members of the opposition party, the Trump campaign. In other words, they politicized and weaponized America's powerful tools of intelligence to spy on an opposition campaign during an election year and shredding the Constitution in the process. How do you people in the media not care about this? And then they used it to spy on an incoming presidential, transition team, and then beyond that. So earlier today, Rush Limbaugh had some very wise, harsh words for those trying to block the release of the FISA abuse memo. Watch this.
What's the big deal with his memo? If Trump is guilty, if Trump did all this, why are they worried about a memo detailing how they did it? If Trump did it, if Trump colluded, if Trump did all this horrible stuff, if Carter Page did all this horrible stuff, if Stephen Miller did all this horrible, if Melania Trump did all this horrible stuff, if Donald Trump Jr., if Eric Trump did it, if Barron Trump did all this horrible stuff, why in the world is the FBI so afraid of people finding out how they got it? Why is the FBI, why are the drive-bys, why is the Democrat Party so worried, so concerned about how they got there? I've gone through as much of this as I can absorb before it all starts to turn into a blue, purple, murky haze. And I can't find any good reasons to not disclose this memo.
That's great. By the way, when I do radio, microphone's here. How does he do it from so far away? I guess that's why he's number one. I don't know. Here was reaction. Former Utah Congressman, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Okay, I think this is what we're going to get tomorrow. This is why they don't want it. Because the phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier was used in part to get a FISA warrant. It's Russian propaganda, Congressman.
Yeah, I think we're also going to start to see the financial trail, who was paying for it, how it was financed, who was moving along. I'm worried that it's actually broader than just the FBI. And remember, this Peter Strzok character, this is the chief of counterespionage. He was the assistant director for counterintelligence. He's using a non-secure phone to send 50,000 text messages to his lover, who he's having an affair with.
And
if you don't think the
Trump.
Russians, the Chinese, and everybody else, and the Russians, the Chinese, and everybody else don't already know about it, the American people are going to be actually the last ones to hear about it.
The irony of Hillary paying the Russians, paying for Russian propaganda in the end, and then that you used to get a warrant to spy on her opposition candidate in an election year, Tom Fitton. You deal with government corruption all the time. Ever deal with anything this big?
No. I've been doing this for 20 years at Judicial Watch, and I saw the FBI files go over to the Clinton White House, the Chinese generals go into the White House, but never did we see the powers of government being used to spy on a political opposition like this, or at least any information that we had to date. And I know why the Democrats don't want this to come out. Hillary Clinton helped pay for this, her campaign. The Democratic National Committee also helped pay for this dossier, which was used by the Democratic administration. So you've got the Democratic Party upset about news or confirmation that Democratic Party money went to help the FBI spy on its political opposition. And James Comey, who went to the president directly, President-elect Trump directly, with this dossier and threw it in his face in a private meeting, did he tell the president that it had been paid for by Hillary Clinton? And remember, that precipitated ultimately in his firing and the appointment of Mueller, who by all accounts is still using this dossier to target Trump world.
That's at the end of the day, Congressman Chaffetz, that's it. That there would be no Trump-Russia collusion without all of these events, or the fact that if the FBI knew that this was Hillary Clinton paid for propaganda, and Comey, as we understand it, wanted to even hire Christopher Steele and pay Christopher Steele. We'll learn more about that, too. And did Rod Rosenstein expand the FISA warrant? And if he did, he's the one that appointed Mueller. It seems so corrupt and incestuous to me at this point. How do we possibly make this right?
Well, only sunlight's going to make it better, only exposing it. You know, I find it curious that the FBI is saying, please don't release the names, don't release the names. We don't want to disparage all of the FBI. We want to highlight the people that are doing the wrong, and you call them out by name. That's how you get rid of those people. That's how you highlight the wrongdoing, and you make them accountable on this. And it's going to be the Inspector General that will come up on the heels of this and fill in even more of the blanks. We're only going to get 4 pages tomorrow, but then the Inspector General will come in
Felonies
too.
were committed, Tom Fitton. We have 20 seconds. And Comey, Page, Strzok, McCabe, and likely Loretta Lynch gave her a pass so she could stay in the race. True or false?
Well, that's what it looks like. And the question is whether the next step's going to be after this memo is released. Are we going to get the accountability we desire? Are we going to find out who did the unmasking, who did the leaking? This is just the tip of the iceberg and just one battle that needs to be fought for full accountability on this scandal of the century.
That's a very important point. Tomorrow, I'm told, is 10% of what's coming. That's scary.